Midnight on Earth podcast with your host, Jake Weaver. Engineered by Cedric Swan. Hey everybody, we are back with another episode of Midnight on Earth. I'm your host, Jake Weaver, and we're here to bring you more knowledge, more lights, and more love. Today we have an incredible guest. Camille Sauvé is here, and she's going to talk about her book, Sorcerers of Stone, Architects of the Three Ages, that talks about the hidden history of humanity. What was really going on Earth millions and millions of years ago. So much is going on in this book. It's very powerful, and we're going to talk to her in just a second. But first, I need you to do something for me. Follow me on Instagram at midnight_on_earth. That is the address. You can follow me there. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you go to get your podcasts, click that button that connects us so you know exactly what's going on all the time. And of course, tell a friend, tell someone that you know that loves these type of podcasts, that wants to know more about the hidden history of humanity, because this book is amazing. Bring them here, midnightonearth.com. Okay, so we're going to talk to Camille in just 1 second, but I have to read her bio. So here we go. Camille Sauvé is an independent journalist, writer, photographer, and graphic designer who lives in the Sacred Valley in Cusco, Peru. She has spent hundreds of hours exploring Peru's enigmatic archaeology sites, also known as huacas or sacred sites, by on-site investigation and reading many academic papers and historical accounts about them. Fascinated with the fantastic monoliths and megaliths and their technical sophistication and possible uses, she is also interested in who is responsible for their creation, and she's here to tell us about it today. Hello, Camille.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me.
So tell me about this book. This book blew my mind. There are so many different things I didn't realize about the archaeological connections around the Earth with these sites that can't be rebuilt with today's technology. These stones that are thousands of tons perfectly moved into place and organized in such a way. Something's going on. We lost something there. How did you get involved in this?
I got involved in this because I came here about 5.5 years ago and just found myself like perplexed by everything that I was seeing around me. And I live in the Sacred Valley of Peru, very close to a town called Pisac. But I have, there's probably one of the I mean, it's arguable, but here in Peru, we have a couple great sites one is called Sacsayhuaman, the other is Machu Picchu, and there's also Tiwanaku. But it seems like more people go to Machu Picchu than Sacsayhuaman, but I actually find Sacsayhuaman as amazing as Machu Picchu. And anyways, it's in my backyard pretty much. It's just a half an hour collectivo right away. So I spend a lot of time there, and I'm exploring all the different sites, archaeology sites, which are also known as huacas here. Huacas generally has the term of sacred site to the local Quechua people. And so I walk around this giant park, and I noticed that there are so many different types of construction styles in Sacsayhuaman. And there's a very old style which is called Hanampacha, according to a Cusqueñan researcher. His name was Alfredo Gamarra. And this is a style which kind of has these very Dr. Seussian looking rocks rocks that don't seem to be like anything we recognize in more traditional temple building, where you would see, a rectangular building with altars and columns. These particular Hanampacha sites are more fluid, more organic. They tend to have canals built in them for water flow, seats that I don't know, people can sit on. Maybe there was something else that was going on in the ancient times. People here often talk about dwarves as well, so that could be a possibility. And there's all these forms that look like they're pressed into a plasticine kind of rock. Or once was plasticine. So it was a softened type of rock in the past. And these forms are literally all over Sacsayhuaman and buried deep underground. And then you find frequently a second style, which is called Urampacha, and that's the polygonal megalithic style. So you find that like built right on top of these older styles. And we're familiar with, the polygonal, perfectly fitted puzzle piece fitting megaliths that are here in Peru. So that's what most people are familiar with. And then there's a third style called Ukupacha, and that is more the traditional Inca, Wari, Quilca types of buildings. So you basically see these three different styles, but the problem is you tend to have the guides and the archaeologists say that they're built by the same people, they're so very different looking than anything the Inca is recognized as building. So I don't know why they're still sticking with that narrative when these rocks are just so much older than the Inca or Wari, and it's possible because they don't know who built it, so they're having to pin it on some particular culture,
right?
And that's today, like Sacsayhuaman, almost all the forms of construction that are there are usually attributed to the Wari, the Quilque, and the Inca. So those are the more recent civilizations that have been in this particular area.
But there were indicators, like what you talk about in your book, that something was off about that, because the timing was off. And what you notice and what you're saying now is that there seems to be three stages of development, and each stage had a very specific type of archaeology, and it can't be explained away as different stages of one culture throughout time, because some of those older stones, the oldest stones, were buried under large amount of sediment, way more sediment than could accumulate in the time frame that they were talking about.
Yeah, that's what I discovered. I discovered many of these earlier style first world Hanampacha sites were buried under 2, 3, 4 meters of sediment. And I even have a friend here who tends to believe in the official narrative that the Inca built it. He says, I've seen it buried in 10 meters and more of this particular sediment. So now the question is, because the Inca was the imperial Inca period was actually a very short-lived period. It was only less than 100 years. So if we are to take the word of the archaeologists and the guides, the official guides, we would basically it would basically indicate that the Inca were doing their entire time building, these sites.
Right.
Which really wasn't possible. I mean, not only are they here in Cusco, but you find them down Lake Titicaca. You find them all around up to Cajamarca in Peru. So they're really everywhere. So we know the Inca were actually building empires, and they were fighting wars to expand their empire. So it would be a massive undertaking to actually create all of these ancient sites. And they don't even match the architecture.
Right.
So.
Exactly. I mean, there's definitely some indicators there. And you point out in your book that even the locals, when you talk to them, the shamans, they point out that the buildings did not originate with them. They say that they were there when their people settled there. In some cases, in some mythology, it was all created in one day by people, star people.
That has been recorded by a couple chroniclers. There was Garcilaso de la Vega and Pedro de Leon. Basically, they went to Lake Titicaca, which was it was the origin of the Inca royalty from that particular area. And they did ask the locals, they said, did the Inca build this? And they were contemporaries of the Inca. Basically, they in one narrative is the locals laughed and they said, no, this is way older, they said it was way before our ancestors were here. But there's also stories about Viracocha. So the locals, the Quechua locals, do speak of an ancient god that came down here sometime in the far past, and he was responsible for the creations of Tiwanaku, and it is believed the Coricancha as well. So as far as putting a time on this, I would say probably antediluvian time, so
right.
Before the Younger Dryas period.
Yes, and that means pre-flood. For those people that don't know, there was a worldwide flood, and this is before that.
Yes, exactly. And the locals, even the ones here in the Cusco area that I've talked with that aren't official guides, they will say, these were built way before the Inca. So
yeah, and you think of places like Pumapunku and how they got those rocks there, the size, the scale. That's the thing. People can say, well, these ancient civilizations were very advanced in their thinking and they had mathematical precision. That still doesn't account for the absolute scale of some of these buildings and the size of some of these boulders, and the fact that it cannot be replicated with 21st century technology. That's huge right there.
Right, exactly. Yeah, some of the stones in Pumapunku are about 180 tons, and they're not even from the area.
Right.
They're like 40 miles away. And it seems like the ancients kind of had a grasp of geopolymers because we did. There was a scientist who went down there about 10 years ago, I believe. His name was Joseph Davidowitz, and he did an analysis of these rocks, and he found carbon substances in what should be volcanic rock. And you generally don't find carbon substances in the rock because it would be burned in any type of volcanic rock. So somehow or another, they had a binding agent that was fixed into this andesite rock, which seems to indicate it was like pulverized in the past. Pretty advanced technology.
Well, it's mind-blowing. And then, of course, you point out in your book that there's other types of that first world, that first type of archaeology all over the world. China, Portugal, Japan, Bulgaria, Italy. There's places that have similar types of architecture, not exactly, but seemingly constructed in the same way, which then indicates that there was some sort of larger worldwide civilization. Yeah,
that's one of the things that, as I started looking into this old style of rock, I started investigating where else these places are. And I found it's really all over the world. It's in Lebanon, Syria. There's sites in Germany, France, China, Japan, and the similarities as far as like a giant monolith with stairs, with canals flowing through it. It's kind of amazing this isn't talked about more.
It's absolutely amazing. And thank the divine that we're talking about it now, just getting it out to people. But it's suppressed, I believe, on purpose. I mean, if the information that is truly available about our history were made public, it would destabilize things like religion and geopolitics, and people that are very vested in their origins would be very shook up, realizing that the history of Earth is not what it seems, and actually we're just one human family showing up all over the world.
Right. And possibly showing a mystery of maybe there was some paleo contact early on that created these forms as well. And they could get around through, transatlantically, transpacific, so they had ways to get from one continent to another. And that's another mystery. How did this happen at a time when these things weren't supposed to happen? We were supposed to be living in pretty primitive conditions, and not have advanced means to get around the planet.
Or in some cases, based on how far this goes back, we weren't even developed at all, based on conventional science. But I found it really interesting, the Alfredo Gamera's three-world theory. That blew my mind, because it really did help to explain how some of this is possible. The Earth's orbit being closer to the sun, the Earth itself being significantly smaller and malleable, living beings being more ethereal and less material. Tell us everything about this. This is so huge.
Well, that is one of the theories of, as you said, Alfredo Gamera, and he got a lot of visions in dreams, in trance, and about how what he was researching in Cusco seemed to. I don't know if this came on as he was researching or even earlier, but he said he did see that the world at one time was smaller, and it had different orbits around the Earth, and because the Earth was smaller, he proposed that the Hunapacha work was very easy to mold for the early humanity that was here at that time, and this is why. Seemingly you can see like fingerprints in the rock. And this was one of the propositions that he had brought forth, that because there was less gravity of Earth, probably about 55% of the size that we have today. This is the reason why dinosaurs could grow to the sizes that they could. This is this is why they were giants on Earth. This is one of his theories. It also happens to correspond with what some of the psychics, the theosophists, say as well, as early humanity was of a more plasticine nature, more spiritual. And over a period of time in Earth's history, this early proto-humanity was evolving and crystallizing and densifying into our forms that we have today. So it is an interesting theory. And I thought, well, it could connect the rock formations, which seemed like they were soft and moldable at one time, to this theory of Gamera. And I make those connections with the theosophists as well, like Rudolf Steiner and Madame Blavatsky.
Right, because they tapped into the Akashic records on their own, and they got downloads that were very similar to what Gamera was talking about with his dream interpretations, and the three worlds and the three types of architecture, all based on the environmental situations. Now, do you believe personally that the humans of that time, the more ethereal humans, were colonists? Perhaps we were sent there, or do you feel just intuitively that ethereal version of humanity originated here? And we were just like sprung forth from the creator out of creation in that way, and then evolved into a material form as the earth itself evolved?
I haven't actually really committed myself to that idea, but I am fascinated with the Theosophist and their proposition about how we did come here. I mean, it's another version that sort of makes sense to me. I mean, I do believe that in our galaxy there are other beings out there, and we may have been seeded and helped along by these other beings. So I am willing to consider that as a legitimate way that humanity may have come into being. And this is why I was exploring those theories, because, when we look at these sites, they don't really make sense to the conventional narrative that humanity was only here for, as far as civilizations, for 6,000 years. It seems like something else was happening.
It seems laughable. It's like, who could, like, what? That doesn't even make sense. Like,
yeah. and yeah.
But there's even more to this, because these sites, they were chosen as initiatory sites. They were chosen based on frequency. It wasn't necessarily just about the stones themselves, but even where they were placed, the history of that area, and all the energies surrounding it. Yeah.
We have here in Cusco, which is kind of it's a bowl, and they call it a navel. And there are many other sites around the world that are called the navel of the universe or the navel of the world. And they usually imply it's kind of a hot spot energetically. And so kind of right in this bowl, there is a temple called the Coricancha, which is the temple of the sun. And from this particular temple, we have all these radiating lines that come from the temple. And they reach out around the Tawantinsuyo, which is the four directions in the Inca realm. And a lot of these wakas or sacred sites are actually built right on top of these lines that are radiating out. And it's there's a lot of earthquake activity that has happened here over the past. So it's an area with a lot of fault action. And usually whenever you have fault action, you also are getting a lot of earth energies, which are coming out, electromagnetic energies. So to put these rocks, like these monoliths, right on top of these hot spots in the earth, it's actually harnessing the energy of the earth, and even the rocks themselves have chemistry within them that amplify and enhance those energies. So this is why you always see Pacos, which are the Andean shamans, go to these sites, and they're always giving offerings. And in the past, the Spanish chroniclers also wrote down this is where the Inca priest would go to, because they were oracles. So they were getting downloads from ancestors, transdimensional beings, and relaying that information back to the Inca royalty. Wow. So yeah, they're energetic sites, and you can go into them and you can feel a difference in the energy. And some people, I guess, are more sensitive and would pick up possibly communications between interdimensional realms. Whoa!
This is huge. Look, how did we lose this? I just want to know your thoughts. You probably don't have the answer. I don't have the answer. But how did we lose this as humans? how are some of us still practicing this down there where you are in Peru and other places, and other humans are caught in this weird material matrix that doesn't even exist? Like, what happened? Like, how did we lose that deep, deep spiritual connection to mold the earth, to listen to the earth, to all the things that you hear about shamans and these supposedly less advanced ancient cultures? They had a different type of advancement. What happened?
Yeah, we seem to have cut ourselves off from the natural earth energies and telluric currents that can raise our consciousness, can alter our state of mind, and perhaps even communicate with other dimensions. And this, it's really complex to say exactly what happened. It looks like colonialism happened.
That's a big part of it. Yeah. And religion. My God.
Yeah. Yeah. And part of it is they tried to wipe out indigenous historical narratives of societies, the indigenous societies, which really talk about, they have a different creation myth than the ruling powers that came here to Latin America and to South America. And at the time, the church wasn't really wanted to keep the narrative on, one particular narrative about God and the cosmos. So they destroyed a lot of documents, a lot of, we saw that mainly in Central America, but also here in Peru. Though Peru didn't have the written documents that Mexico had and Guatemala had, but they were en masse destroyed and in bonfires. And here in Peru, the idols were destroyed, the huacas were destroyed. If they weren't destroyed, a chapel, a Catholic chapel, was put on top of it. Oh. And basically the priests were either killed or told, this is, you need to convert or else. So right. This is why we lost a lot of our connection to the stories about how we lived on Earth, how we understood Earth energies. It's sad.
It's super sad. I was going to say the exact same thing. We're on the same frequency here. It's super sad because here are these beautiful people, this beautiful culture, actually getting results from their rituals and their practices. They're actually having a dialogue, and here comes one aspect of humanity and their version of reality to dominate that. But there had to be some preservation, and also there had to be some acknowledgement that there's real results here. But was it just all Satan? Is that how it was classified, and then that was the excuse for decimation?
That's pretty much, some of the Spanish who came here, they couldn't figure out how in the world could you create these things.
Right, like exactly.
The colossal walls at Sexy Woman, and they thought some sorcery was the cause of this, and
so what? Like, I mean, is it good sorcery? I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's the reason for the name of my book, Sorcerers of Stone, because that's basically what the Spanish had. Instead of seeing another culture with advanced technology, this was impossible for the Spaniards at the time to envision. But fortunately, here in Peru, they did manage to keep some of their traditions alive, and many of the elders and the Quechua did evade the Inquisition of the Spanish, and they basically ran off into the jungles. They went up to the high mountaintops, and they managed to avoid all of the destruction that was coming along with the Inquisition here, and preserved much of their traditions.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that's why we still have people today, and the Pacos and shamans. They still visit these sites and they do ceremonies there. So we're really fortunate here in Peru that we still have these traditions, and they haven't been completely wiped out.
Oh, it seems like a miracle and a blessing, and it almost seems like they're resurging in a way.
Yeah, and it's because we have also a lot of people coming to Peru from all over the planet, and they want to learn some of the traditions here, which is wonderful. So they want to reconnect to these earth-based traditions where you respect Pachamama, you respect the Apus, which are the sacred mountains here. So we have a lot of people coming here, and they take shamanic tours. They want to learn the traditions, and that's actually bringing a lot of pride back to the people here, who are really amazed that people want to come here and learn from them. So it's bringing more pride about their traditions and their history. So it is becoming more of a resurgence again, which
That's so beautiful. That's really beautiful, because you think about how the Spanish and other colonists came, mostly the Spanish, and they just had one thing on their mind, and that was treasure. And if you think about that, that's such a dense, low frequency, third dimensional intention. And if that's like your only intention of your spirit, like, my God, where are you? That you're in hell, but then hell came to these people. But then, in your opinion, why? Why did this happen? Is there going to be like a brighter humanity that integrates all of the things that were lost? All of the atrocities will be healed, and we'll all come together as a family in that way?
Well, I hope so. I mean, there's the idea that humanity is going in two different directions, and one is going into a new ascension period where we're beginning to, see ourselves more as spiritual beings, and not as just material beings who die and go back to the earth, but and the things that consume us will only be those material things like our iPhones and how big is your television, thing like that. So I do see there's a bifurcation happening, and so there are a number of people who are going more to this ascension idea, and let's live closer to the earth.
Yes.
Let's live and see the spirit of nature, and see the spirit of our being. And others seem to be going in a different direction. So I don't think we're all going to go there.
Well, if you're a Buddhist, you may believe that we all need to go there, and we can't all go there without everybody. That's like also super strange. There's so many different theories about it, but it just seems like there has to be a purpose for the suffering. There had to be some good that came out of those atrocities that somehow is going to benefit the human race. I don't know. I just feel for those people of that time. But tell me more about the stones, because the stones themselves seem to have an effect on people. Like you said, they can create altered states. They can activate deeper meditation. What is that about? Why are they able to do that?
Well, it really, it depends on what kind of stone you're using. Some of these stones, like what we have here in Sacsayhuaman, is metamorphosed limestone, and there's andesite. And many of these stones have a microcrystalline structure, calcites. There's a lot of quartz around here. So basically, if you're in an area which has a lot of fault action, earthquake action, you tend to have on these stones which have quartz in them, you have a piezoelectric properties that happen when you put a lot of force on these stones. And these can be, you will find these like in the Huacas here, especially in Ñapa and Glacia. There's one stone called the blue stone, which has a lot of magnetite and quartz, and that will create electromagnetic zone or field. And this is where you find thrones that are carved into this rock. And it's my belief, because I actually had spent some time there, and I ended up putting my head on this blue stone, and I really was vibrating quite strongly. And I think these are places that you could possibly have transdimensional communication, or and go to other dimensions. So it also happens to be very right to the left of it is a portal, and that's why they call it the Ñapa Iglesia portal. And so it was the cave part of a place where these Pacos or initiates or priests would go to travel to other dimensions. I think that's highly possible. I think locals also say this is a portal, and many of them are afraid to go there because they call it a devil's door, and they believe beings come in and out. And that seems to be the case with another place down by Lake Titicaca called Amaramuru. And also the locals have talked about beings coming in and out of this rock formation, which is kind of a false door.
So have you investigated these places? Like, did you check out the portals?
I've been to all of them.
Right, because there are beautiful pictures in your book.
Yeah. In fact, I'm going to Amaramuru next week. So, but I don't know if I'm ready to go through the portal. There's one guy who did record, actually. He said he did go through it. He had learned a special three-tonal song by an Amaru man. But he said, this Amaru man said, don't share this information with anybody because it's quite dangerous and you may go and not be able to come back. But he has shared his story on YouTube. His name is Jerry Wills, and it's quite fascinating if you want to hear the story of one guy who actually did go through the portal and came back, fortunately.
Wow, because there's something going on. These cultures, they were interacting with these beings. And if I remember correctly, in Peru, the Incas, they believe that they came from the Pleiades and the start of their culture. Am I remembering that correctly?
Yes. The Pleiades is one of the star system or the planet that has, they do believe their ancestors came from. And some, I think it's the Dogon said it was the star of Sirius area where their ancestors came from. But even in Hawaii, where I lived for about a year, many of the Hawaiians believe their ancestors came from the Pleiades as well. So is this tied to the Lemurian civilization? Because there is a belief that the Pacific Islanders and people in Peru, this was once ancient Mu and Lemuria. So, and the Pleiades seem to be the star system where they believe the ancestors came from.
It's really powerful. If you take the deep dive on the Pleiades, it's actually like this star cluster. It's not even like a traditional star system. It's really interesting. It has really heavy energy. And there's people that feel like they channel Pleiadians, and the Pleiadian concept, those beings show up all over the world in different cultures. So what do you think?
Right.
Like, you've been studying this, you've been noticing all of this architecture and really putting your psychic energy into it and your spiritual energy. Like, what do you think happened? What's the story from your perspective?
In my book, I was proposing that these sites were from the Lemurian period, and that if you go back and look at the work of Steiner and Blavatsky, this is a very, very long period of time, like, hundreds of millions of years. So Blavatsky believed that the first physical human came around about 18 million years ago, and that was right at the time of the third race converting into the fourth root race, which was the Atlantean. So, but she tended to believe that the colossal stonework, the polygonal stonework, was actually a creation of the Lemurians. So, so what was happening before the polygonal colossal work? I'm not sure. It might have been an earlier, as she called them, sub-root race of the Lemurians that might have created that, or perhaps there was some other entity that created that. So I have to leave that open.
Yes, of course. But you do feel a strong connection to the Lemurian aspect.
Yes, yeah, and that could have been the Pleiadians who were seeding and with the soul of humanity. So it's all speculation unless you can see it.
Right. It's really powerful though, because there is so much information out there. There's so much evidence, and it really boggles the mind when you think about where we're at technologically and as a civilization, a species in 2024 versus these advanced spacefaring people that supposedly started this place. It seems like not just spiritual information was lost, everything was lost. Somehow somebody hit the reset button on humanity, and we lost so much.
Yeah, and as far as like why we lost so much, I mean, there are many stories about giants being found, the bones of giants.
Yes.
And not only in North America, you can find these stories like in Malta and Sardinia. And the bones are found and then they're confiscated by the authorities. And so we got to ask, where are these bones? And because there were newspaper articles, there were eyewitnesses to these bones, but it seems like there's some authority that doesn't want us to know about these types of early beings. So imagine if they're scared of these bones of giants, what else is being hidden? I mean,
everything that's not sold to us as conventional reality, I would say the entire script that we believe is real is about 20 to 30% accurate.
Right, exactly. So they're occulting a lot of information, which is really unfortunate. And we've seen that also in areas like ufology as well, and they want to, it was kind of the official government of the United States who wants to keep this underground for so long. And now we're beginning to get some disclosure about these kinds of UFOs, entities, and especially now, today in Peru, we have the Nazca mummies.
Oh, right. The Peruvian mummies.
Yeah, in the last few years. But once again, mainstream media and news agencies seem to be on the attack about, the authenticity of these beings. So, but looking at the CAT scans, it really looks like these things are real. I'm not a doctor, but you can see all the bones, you can see the organs, you can see brain material. It would be very hard to fake fake these things.
Exactly. And also it could just indicate the different type of human that we talked about earlier. There was a different physiology. Now, he was talking about them being 12 feet tall and very tall, but who knows what the plethora of life was going on back then? Who knows really, unless you were there, what was going on? And we actually just covered that recently on one of our news episodes, where people are actually now grave robbing in Peru. There's actually an epidemic of grave robbery looking for these alien bodies.
Well, actually, grave robbing has been happening here in Peru for a long, long time. There's so many artifacts all over the country. Somebody had said, if you just put a shovel in anywhere in Peru, you're going to dig up something. But I guess as far as the mummies, I can imagine that, it's gotten a lot more notoriety. A lot of people have heard about it all around the world. So I can imagine there's a lot more hunters looking for these beings, in the Ica region and Nazca regions.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, it's happening. And it's kind of sad because archaeological sites are being decimated all again in the name of someone getting very wealthy, supposedly finding an alien body. But the information itself is unstoppable. Like it's coming out, it's coming out of the seams. You can see it everywhere. The extraterrestrial information, the interdimensional information, this lost spiritual information, it all seems to be seeping back, like it's being held back by these forces that can no longer contain it.
Right. It does. It's now flowing out.
Isn't it? It's mind blowing.
Everybody's connected now, right?
Yes.
We're all on the internet. We all can take videos. We can talk about this so easily. There's no better time to have this disclosure when we're all connected. And this is all in the collective consciousness as well right now. So more will come out.
Oh, absolutely. It's in our genetic memory, in our cellular memory, in our intuitive memory, in our ethereal memory. We know that it's all real. We know we're living in an artificial matrix. We know we're living in a human-created fake world that was put on top of a world that was already there and isn't going anywhere, and it is still going to be there when we're gone, perhaps. And we forgot that. We forgot that we created that and put it on top of that. It can only hold for so long. There's so many of us on the planet, but that collective energy, that spiritual energy is going to push out and activate us. Hopefully, I believe so.
Right. Yeah, I do too. I see a sea change. I mean, everything, we're beginning to really question the narrative of our history. Now we have so many researchers, podcasters, doing independent research, and they're not part of the establishment. So this is getting out. And it's just like this earlier Hanukkah stuff. Most people have never heard of it. What's so fascinating is it's everywhere. Why haven't we heard about it? So, now we can talk about it and share photos, share videos, and really get that messaging out.
Yes, it's unstoppable. The internet cat is out of the bag. Sometimes the authorities probably wish they could put that back in the bag, but they can't. Right. It's out. It's unstoppable. And actually, it's just encoded light. It's just electricity in binary form. It's just light spreading across the planet and people translating that into light, into sound. And it's all very magical in its own way. And it's unstoppable because all of it is connected to consciousness. And consciousness itself loves us and wants humanity to evolve and get to its best point.
Yeah, I hope so. It sounds logical to me.
Yes, but let's talk a little bit more about what happened with the different earth changes. Now, the Hopi and the Aztecs, I believe, correlate on a belief that we are in the fourth or fifth world, depending on which story you look at. Like we came to this incredible moment of civilization and blew ourselves up for some reason. We did it again and again and again. And each iteration had its own vibe, its own frequency, its own technology. But we're here in this world. Is that part of it? Is that really the cyclical nature of the experience?
Yeah, and as to, what caused these one world to go to another world, and it seems like we're devolving because we seem to have been at a more Herod discussed it as a golden world as the earliest civilization, and then also went down into silver, bronze, and iron, and we're at this Iron Age where. Where we're materialistic, we're not connected with our spiritual selves. But I think that's beginning to change. But all of these cultures, as you had mentioned earlier, the Maya, the Aztec, also saw this golden age as, way in the past. This was pre-flood. And then there had been events in history where the Earth had to start all over again, and we basically had to relearn how to cultivate the historical legends and traditions. Do talk about past events where humanity had to restart again, and. Right. But we had a golden age where humanity was living in peace and prosperity. And then an event happened and pretty much destroyed humanity. And they had to start again. And this is recorded in many, many narratives of not only like in the Bible, we have flood stories. We have it in the Indian Avestic text, Purunas. So there are really countless stories from around the world that talk about, a better time, less than better time, and kind of the reality we're in now. But there are. There is a belief that the Kali Yuga is now, but we're beginning to come out of it and on our way to ascension.
Yes, I've heard that as well. I was going to ask you specifically about the Kali Yuga, but yeah, I think so. I mean, it seems that way, but I also know that the divine is outside of cycles too. So who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah, right. And so, but yeah, these are the narratives, the historical narratives that some people don't really want to acknowledge. But we do have examples in history where a lot of the animal life, the flora and fauna, have disappeared. So we may have been hit also in the past with. With asteroids, comets, and then we had individuals like the Viracochas, the traditions of Egypt, which said we had there were individuals that came down that helped humanity start off again.
Right. There are always these master teachers that showed up for these civilizations and taught them everything, but they had different names, but yet they were doing the same thing. It almost seems like it's the same person traveling around the world, but again, it could be a team of people.
Yeah, it did seem to be like there was a group. There was one here in Peru, kind of the key savior character. His name was Viracocha, right. But he had the Viracochas who were his helpers. And they would go around the Andes and, all over Bolivia, Colombia, and help civilizations reboot their civilization by teaching them cultivation, construction techniques. Then these stories, you see these same stories happening all over. So
yes, they're all over the world. And really, it's interesting because when you stop to think about it logically, it's like, okay, so there were these people, that had this really advanced technology, and they knew there were other humans on the earth that needed that information. So they had to go around and teach everybody, but then they left. So I try to think about it logically. I'm like, so what would cause something like that? They either had a timeline, like they had to teach everybody everything by a certain amount of time because then they had to go back to where they were from, or they literally could not hold material form past a certain point in density. So as the earth was changing, they knew that they were going to become less dense, go back to their more ethereal selves, which it seems to be more of an advanced state. But they had this brief time to quickly fly around to all these pockets of humanity and teach them these things. What are your thoughts on that? Why do you feel like they all had to leave? I hadn't really given that a great deal of thought, but I do remember the stories that are written are that the Viracochas come when needed. And once they teach the humanity, key cultivation techniques, building techniques, they leave and they say, we will be back in the future. I mean, as far as, what do they envision will happen in the future that they need to come back? I mean, are they predicting another event, another earth-shattering catastrophe? Maybe they have ways to actually predict when we will be hit with, celestial bodies from space. So that's possible. Yeah, they may know when we're going to be hit by an asteroid again. I mean, it's everybody. It's like Quetzalcoatl, like around the world, everybody gets helped. And then they have to leave. Perhaps if we raise our vibration collectively and we reach a higher state, then maybe we'll attract them back. We'll have that frequency and then they will know, oh, they did it. They finally came together. We left some nuggets of information. They finally came together as a human family. They're loving each other. Let's go back and say hello. They're ready.
Yeah. I love your idea. That's great.
Well, another really positive thing is that I heard a radio interview once with someone from the Hopi tribe. Now, this was in about 2008 or 9, I believe. And that person came on this show, Coast to Coast AM. It was listened to by 30 or 40 million people. And they said that they had a message for humanity that we are no longer going to go through another cataclysm. We're no longer going to blow ourselves up again. We've passed the point where previously in previous iterations of humanity, we blew ourselves up, but we've passed that point. We're making it and we're on what they were calling the one heart path. And they sent a representative on the show to talk about this, and I happened to be listening that day and caught that. Isn't that amazing? They feel like, at least as of then, the Hopi, they feel like we're going to make it. Like we've done it as humans. We're going to survive and actually thrive.
Oh, well, I love that message. That's a great message. I have in my book, there is a Hopi elder wisdom keeper named Grandpa Dan, but he tended to see a little darker vision, and maybe his vision was something had happened in the interim where this other individual who came on Coast to Coast saw a more positive future. Maybe there was something that happened in between. But Grandpa Dan, Everham, I believe his last name was, he did say, we will reach a state where, humanity becomes so lost and many of the people will come in as soulless individuals. Unconnected with the earth, and they would feel, basically just like beings that were disembodied. And he said this would be what you would see before the the next transition of humanity.
Wow.
I don't remember if he actually said we will come into a better world at that time. But I think what he was saying is it's going to be rough, at a period when we have that this change between worlds. So he said there's going to be some dark times here on Earth before we actually go to a more spiritual ascension period.
That makes sense. I mean, the humans usually need that. We need to literally hit rock bottom before we can go back up. We have to hit a place where the only way is up in order to get there. Perhaps, hopefully, unless some of us or a lot of us integrate the information that you're talking about and the information that you're finding with these ancient cultures. Like if we integrate that in time, maybe we can shift the frequency, right? Because in your book, you say shift consciousness, shift the world.
Right. Yeah, I think that's what we need to do. And I think a lot of people are doing it today. There's a lot of healers out there. There's a lot of, spiritual people wanting humanity to come together and recognize our spiritual inheritance. And so we need that darkness. We need to go that low to kick us in the butt so we can go to higher planes and higher consciousness.
Yeah.
So
seems that way. And I want to also ask you about, and tell me if you've heard about this, the Tarsian Empire or Tartaria. Do you know about this?
Yeah, I do.
So supposedly there was a worldwide civilization, a very peaceful civilization in more modern times, not the 20 million years ago or the distances that we're talking about now, but in more modern times, it was a worldwide peaceful civilization that had archaeological structures all over the world that seemed to match, and they were snuffed out. They were subdued, and the history of them was wiped out, even though there were similar architecture and seemingly some type of evidence still around. Well, what do you think about this? Even if this was real, if there is a Tarsian Empire, it seems like that's the same template that they used to wipe out the Peruvian history and the ancient history of all these indigenous peoples.
Right. Yeah, I know about that. But I do find a lot of faults with people promoting the Tartarian Empire. When you really look into some of the claims, like, for instance, like in San Francisco, they say a lot of these underground structures that were created for water flow in San Francisco was actually Tartarian. But, you can go into the historical documents and find the actual people building it at the turn of the century and the teens and 20s. So also the Great Fair that we had, what was that, 1938, I believe. They pinpoint that this was Tartarian architecture. But you can go to the museum in the Presidio and look at the actual artifacts that are left over from the fair, and they're plaster. And we have today and back at turn of the century, we had great architects, and they can do amazing stuff with plaster that makes it look phenomenal. We really did have skilled craftsmen that we don't need to create myths around our buildings that are 70 years old.
It's new to me. It was new to me recently, but it kind of hit me when I was reading your book. I was like, a lot of this sounds similar. Now, I don't necessarily sign on with the Tartarian situation. I don't even know enough about it to even form an opinion, but it does seem interesting that history could be changed. It could be wiped out within a few generations, tweaking some history books, burning some things, destroying some buildings. and then things could be lost.
Those are actual real facts. I mean, there are plenty of examples, real examples of trying to wipe out the cultures, the narratives of creation narratives and historical legends of cultures all around the world. I mean, just recently, they were taking Native American children in Canada, and taking them out of their houses and out of their tribe and forcibly, and putting them into homes, cutting off their hair, to cut off their culture, their connection to their culture. And, and being told you have to learn, this is the way, this is, you have to learn the Western ways and the Western God and the Western, and that's recent stuff.
I know. It's just, that's also super sad. I mean, why we do this as humans, there must be some story that at the end of it all, when we're all there together, it'll all make sense. But it's really frustrating in the moment because it's just suppressing something that's truly magical. And with this technology, the stones, the different types of architecture, everything that was lost, when do you feel like this will be acknowledged? When will science and archaeology look at these things and realize the very basic facts? It's not replicatable. We don't know how it happened. We don't know the true age of these things. When will we finally just open up and let that in collectively?
Well, I see probably more archaeologists now are open-minded about that. I mean, Graham Hancock has come out with what was that series on Netflix? Initially,
I can't remember. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was attacked by, kind of mainstream archaeology. But he said, as the series came out and his many books, exploring North America, the anomalies in history, he said he's actually met quite a few archaeologists and historians who say, yeah, it's really opening my eyes. I'm beginning to see that, the world is much more complex and the history has been distorted for I think it was 40 years they believed in the Clovis period was the oldest period of humanities coming over here, and that was 14,000 years ago, but they're finding civilizations much older here in South America. And it's really to the maverick, researchers, and some of them are non-credited, accredited by a university, who are finding great stuff. But, and there's also there are legitimate archaeologists who are saying, oh, wow, 40 years of we were told one thing, but we're finding that there's a legacy here of civilizations that is so much older than the Clovis period. So all this is coming out now. So I think a lot of people are beginning to wake up, and even in academia, and that's refreshing. People are beginning to question once long established narratives of how old a human civilization really is. So
thank goodness.
We're progressing.
Yes, things are happening, and it's probably because some humans have to literally die. The people that are holding back the information, the people that are holding that old frequency, the negative frequency, have to literally leave their body. It's their lives over in order to release that energy. It seems like it's happening 30 years from now. It's going to be really fantastic. And, we've had a fantastic conversation. This has been absolutely amazing. I love this book, and we just scratched the surface. I mean, we're talking about a little bit of what's in here, but this book has so much more information, a lot of information about the Akashic records, Lemuria, all the different things we're talking about, dozens of beautiful pictures. It's amazing. Sorcerers of Stone, Architects of the Three Ages. You can find that Amazon and anywhere else you can buy books. It's totally available. The website is sorcerersofstone.com. So if you want to take the deep dive on this, Camille is there. The book is there. You can. Camille, we've had such an incredible conversation. I really feel like we've scratched the surface a little bit. We've covered a lot, though. Is there anything else you feel like we should know about this phenomenon? Is there anything that we didn't tap into?
Well, I just would like to say, if your audience is really interested in this ancient civilization, go to Peru and visit these sites. I mean, I think they'll be blown away by what they're looking at, because I was, and I continue to be blown away by what I'm looking at, and I've been looking at it for 5 years, and to see that there's such a magical, different world that we don't really understand right now. I think it is. This is one of the reasons I think people should travel, because they really get to see a more complex world, a more magical world. And Peru is certainly one of the better places you can go to really see this magic. It's really amazing.
Wow. And the stones themselves, they have a palpable energy, like you're saying. So it's not just seeing these megalithic, huge structures, but the energy exchange with those stones causes a frequency shift, because you're interacting with this ancient magic, but you're also realizing, like you said, there was an ancient world. There was another world that's no longer in our present time. And that can change people in itself.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. So that's the other side. Connect with nature, connect with the magic, connect with Earth again. I think we can transform and really get to know our higher selves, our more divine selves. So, yeah.
Absolutely. That was so beautiful. Camille, thank you so much for being here. This interview has been absolutely amazing.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was great. Thank you for having me on.
Anytime. When you write your second book, you will be here and everyone will be getting it. And again, everyone, get this book, Sorcerers of Stone. It's out there. The pictures, the words, it's just going to blow your mind. Get this book. And then, like she said, go travel to Peru. So, thank you so much for being here again, Camille. Please hold through the outro music. And everyone, we did it. Incredible episode. Think about what we said. The different worlds that we've lived in as humans. How many lifetimes have we had? I don't even know, but we all have a purpose and it all means something and it's all moving forward. So on that note, we will see you next week. Midnight on Earth.